Good afternoon. On behalf of Engineers Australia, I'm delighted to welcome you all to our Thought Leaders series, Digital Twins in Critical Transport Infrastructure. My name is Amanda and I'll be your host for today. Firstly, in keeping with our custom, Engineers Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to them, their cultures, and to elders past and present. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that today's webinar is being hosted with Engineers Australia's university partner, RMIT University. RMIT is a multi-sector university of technology, design and enterprise with a mission to help shape the world through research, innovation and engagement, and to create transformative experiences for students to prepare them for life and work. RMIT School of Engineering is the largest school within RMIT and is renowned for its high-quality, industry-relevant teaching and research, its globally competitive graduates and its international linkages, and it is committed to driving innovation and collaboration through a wide range of industry partnerships and to translate its research to impact partners and the wider community. Today, we will hear from 3 speakers, followed by our live audience Q&A, and I encourage you to send questions through to our speakers via the YouTube chat box. And now I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Professor Filippo Gaiastozzi. Filippo is an accomplished expert specialising in road and airport infrastructure. He earned his second PhD from Virginia Tech University in the US and served as the chair of the Technical Committee on Sustainable and Resilient Pavements at the Transportation Research Board of the National Academies of Science and Engineering in the US from 2017 to 2022. Since 2008, he's been actively involved in numerous significant road and airport construction projects worldwide. Filippo engages in collaborative efforts with national and international government bodies, local governments, industry, and product stewardship associations. Please welcome Filippo Gaiastozzi.
Thanks, Amanda, for the introduction, and I will now introduce you to the topic of the day, which is digital twins for critical transport infrastructure projects. I just wanted to start by giving a little bit of an introduction of today's topic before I'll pass it on to our next 2 speakers. The next 2 speakers will be going more into the detail of digital twins with practical application and case studies related to what they've done in the past through their companies. But this will just be, for me, a way to introduce the topic to you for what specifically relate to transport infrastructure projects. So digital twin is a wide area that can be applied to many different things, processes, many different types of projects. But in this particular presentation, I will be focusing on transport infrastructure, which is not unusual, but it's something that is starting to pick up right now. So when I'm referring to transport infrastructure projects, I'm mostly talking about roads, mostly talking about railways and the airports. Sometimes we also have bridges as part of the road network, for instance, but that's what we will be talking about today. And as you can see around Australia, there are a lot of construction going on, a lot of projects going on, and the statement from the government is that in the 2024-2025 budget, they have committed 96.5 billion towards the nation building projects in the infrastructure investment program. So there is basically something happening in each and every single state. But if you want to have a breakdown of what's currently happening, then I got this a table from the Australian government website for what relates to the Productivity Commission. And this table is just referring to road and rail projects. So you can see all the different jurisdictions there on the table, New South Wales, Victoria, and so on and so forth. The amount of project that has been completed to date, the amount of project that is underway, the amount of project that is still pending, the total number of projects. So this table was updated, I think, a few months ago, probably around December last year, beginning of this year, so maybe 5 to 6 months ago. And you can see that the majority of the project is obviously concentrated within the east coast of Australia. In New South Wales, for instance, you have 49 that are underway and 104 that are pending. Now, the pending projects, they basically are projects that haven't been started yet, and they are still in the planning phase, if the planning phase has even been started. So Victoria, you can see 17 have been completed, 66 underway, 85 pending. Queensland has the largest number of projects in total, and there are 122 pending. And you can have a look at your state if you're not one of these first three that I commented on. But what I would like to emphasize is the last column there, the column in red, where you see the percentage of projects that is still pending. And if you look at those, you will figure out pretty quickly that in pretty much each and every single state, most of them above 50%, and in some cases also 68%, like in New South Wales, this project haven't started yet, and they are still at the planning phase, if a planning phase has even commenced. So there is an opportunity there, and there is an opportunity to introduce technology that will allow us to do things better, to predict, to plan for, to use a proactive approach when we are doing maintenance on the transport infrastructure project. Let's not forget that transport infrastructure projects, they might need a year or 2 or 3, depending on the size of the project, to be built, but then they will last for decades. And that's actually the important part. That's where, for instance, most of the environmental impacts are generated from. Not many people know that. Probably just 10% of the environmental impacts is generated during the construction phase. But in a transport infrastructure project, 80 to 90% of the total environmental impact will be generated during the usage phase, the maintenance phase, over the few decades that the transport infrastructure is supposed to be lasting for. So if we can do things better for all those pending projects, start using technologies, this will avoid project blow-ups. We've seen many different cases here in Victoria, for instance, delays and problem to users. So to do that, digital twin is one of the strategies. And digital twin is nothing other than a virtual representation or a digital representation of the physical assets. And we can use this digital representation to facilitate the process of designing, the process of planning, the process of building, the process of maintaining, but also if you think about the end of life, the project of disposing of the infrastructure, the process of recycling the infrastructure in a way for a second life. So we can manage the entire life cycle of the transport infrastructure project by using digital tools like digital twins, for instance. Now, I said right a few seconds ago that you can use digital twins in transport infrastructure projects throughout the entire life cycle. So if we look at a few examples now, we definitely need to start from the planning phase. So this is when we collect the information about cost, about the time it will take to build the infrastructure, the implementation, how difficult it's going to be, how feasible it's going to be, all the contract negotiations, so on and so forth. And digital twins can actually be used in this case to just evaluate the idea of whether the project is technically or is not technically and economically viable. And if it is, what's going to be the cost, the timing for implementing, and how many stakeholders are involved. All of that relates to the planning phase. So I just wanted to mention here an example of the London South Dock Bridge, because it was one of the few examples around the world that where digital twins was actually used during the planning phase. They had a lot of significant challenges here, and by the way, the bridge was supposed to be finalized this year, but there will probably be some delays as well. But that was due to a lack of funding. That's my understanding, at least. So they had a lot of different challenges here, technical challenges. One was the designing of the north abutment, because there was the need to house drive mechanisms. There was a hidden counterweight when opening up to let the bridge to open up and get both passing through it. So in this case, Arcadis was the designer, and they were able to estimate the dredging volumes, for instance. They created geological cross-sections using digital twins. And overall, the use of this integrated digital approach allowed them to save in terms of ground investigation. And they estimated that this savings was about 30% of all ground investigation that was required, approximately £70,000 for this particular project. So doing it at the planning phase, it's going to be a good way to start your project idea and verify how feasible they are under a technical and economical perspective. Then we move on to the second phase, which is the design phase. So we're moving through the life cycle of the transport infrastructure project. At the design phase, we convert everything that was an idea into more technical specification details in order for the contractor to be able to build the infrastructure, and then later for the operator, if it's a road, it's going to be a road operator to use to maintain the infrastructure. This particular case should be familiar to a lot of people. This is the Port Rail Transformation Project that happened in Melbourne. The image is from Seymour White. Seymour White was the contractor there. The designer in this case was WSP. So this port, this project here, as the name says, was to transform or to shift the majority of the goods, the majority of the freights coming through those barges there on a rail truck rather than moving them on wheels. So it was the big goal was to increase the rail terminal capacity and to improve the port's connection basically with the Victorian rail system. This was done to reduce all the congestion related to trucks and moving goods on wheels in that particular area. So WSP was given the task to design all of this. There were, as you can imagine, there were several stakeholders involved, and I think they gave them time around 6 months to design the whole project. So through this short time, they liaised with a software company. I think it was Bentley, and they started engaging and managing the workflow in real time. The amount of time that they saved, according to what was declared by WSP, was about 500 project hours while designing the Port Rail Transformation project. There was a real-time collaboration in this project through the digital twin. So all the stakeholders were involved to and have access to the same platform. And that's why they call it a right first time design approach, because by the time it was designed, everybody was involved and everybody agreed on the way to go, the way to move this forward. If we keep moving after the design, we obviously do construction. So we need to realize whatever was designed in the previous phase. And we're bridging the gap between managing the project and all the field operations, all the field activities. In this particular phase, digital twins is going to be helpful, not just to project manage the entire construction process, but also because the information is in a digital format and is available through or to all the stakeholders in using simple mobile devices, whether it's an iPad or your mobile phone. So this particular project here was is an example of digital twins being used during the construction phase. And it's a road that was built by the Department of Transportation in Minnesota, the United States. Now, the problem that they had was that the company designing this was WSB, different company from the one I mentioned before. WSB was given a task, and there was a maximum cap, they call it guaranteed maximum price construction cap of $130 million that could not be exceeded. So they had to stay on budget and accommodate all these requirements, the complicated earthworks. They designed the process through digital twins so that they were actually sure about all the material quantities involved, and this allowed them to be more flexible in terms of the cost analysis in real time. So they declared that the digital twin saved the Minnesota Department of Transportation more than $50 million during the conversion of this highway. The problem that they had was basically this was an old highway with 2 lanes per direction or 1 lane per direction, but they were all upgrade intersections, traffic light operated intersections. So they wanted to move the traffic. They wanted to separate the traffic flows, people going through the highways compared to people crossing the intersections. So you will find all these underpasses and overpasses throughout this, I think it was a 5-kilometer stretch of road. They did that to improve safety. But the thing was that they did all of that by project managing the field activities by using digital twins or a digital model of their own project. Now, the fourth phase is the use and maintenance. So if we keep going through the life cycle, now we've built the infrastructure, we need to operate it, we need to use it, we need to maintain it. And this includes all the monitoring activities, but also the maintenance for repairing the infrastructure. And that there is also something that a lot of people commonly forget. The infrastructure, if it's a transport infrastructure like a road, like a railway, this is going to be used by a lot of people every single day. So if we create a disruption in one particular point of the network, that is going to affect a lot of people. So the usage phase, the fact that the users is using the infrastructure, that's also something that we need to manage and we need to deal with effectively. Now, unfortunately, this use and maintenance phase, it's, I would say, not disregarded, but it's not really taken into consideration too much in terms of using digital twins for developing a model that will last that would be effective during the usage and maintenance phase. That's because most of the time we think a lot about the planning, we think a lot about how to design the infrastructure, and then we do the best that we can to build the infrastructure, but then at some point, because the transport infrastructure are lasting 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that's going to be somebody else looking after this infrastructure for that long stretch of time. So I found a few examples, but they were not really related to roads and rails or airports. But this one was interesting too, because it was a dam in California. This is, I think, the second highest dam in California, and it's managed by Yuba Water. Now, in the past, they had to spend about a week to go through this huge vertical wall with people, moving people in these difficult places. So there were safety issues there. And effectively, they could simply collect information about a few points in a week, spending quite a significant amount of money. They started putting all these prisms on the vertical wall, and this gives them information in real time in terms of depending on what the water level is going to be behind the dam wall. They are able to see if there are particular localized areas where the stresses and strains are higher than what they're supposed to be, so they can send a few drones there, take photos and more detailed things, and all of this can be done from the office. So they said that the digital twins approach saved them a lot of money and time, and allowed them to do things in a much more safely manner, because there is no need now to go and inspect the dam, physically go and inspect the dam. There is a feeling that sensors are becoming smarter, they are becoming cheaper, they are becoming smaller, and a few people are looking at putting small sensors into our daily drives. So at the factory stage, during the manufacturing of a car, there is a thought about using small accelerometer like that, putting it into the car, and use some vehicle to infrastructure type of transmission system. For instance, the car passing through a portal in the middle of the highway, and the portal actually grabs all the information from that car in terms of vertical acceleration, for instance, for the past kilometer. This actually means that if you are the road operator of that particular road, you can collect the information from all the different cars passing through your portal, and this information will be helpful for you to identify if there are particular section between portals that requires maintenance, because if you start finding a lot of vertical accelerations or a higher than usual values of vertical acceleration, well, that means that the roughness of the road is not smooth as it's supposed to be, and there might be an issue in terms of potholes, for instance, or cars are going up and down because there was a pothole there, and you might need to prioritize maintenance in one particular section compared to another. In Victoria, it's quite interesting because we do have a platform which is called Digital Twins Victoria. You can access it freely at the website that I'm going to show you in a second. But basically, you start from a satellite image like this. This is the CBD of Melbourne, the Richmond area on the right-hand side. And this is then converted into a digital model. The Victorian government has invested quite a lot of funding to produce this digital twins model. The digital model can then be used to make predictions, for instance. So you can start overlapping a lot of different layers of information. In this particular case, for instance, we're looking at the precipitation change over the period between 2020 and 2039, something like that, 2030 to 2039. And you can see that there are different colors because the prediction is that in this particular area of the CBD, there is going to be a decrease in percentage of rainfall change by less than 5%. In this area towards Richmond, the prediction is different. So you can adjust based on the information here, start saying, okay, if I need to build new infrastructure here, new roads, well, I might need to consider the flooding, flash flooding, rain intensity, and how that changes over the next few decades. You can do the same for temperature, for instance. So there is another layer of information through the portal. You can see the web address there. So it's digitaltwins.gov.au, digitaltwinsvic.gov.au. And same for the temperature. Some area of the CBDs will be exposed to an increase in temperature of approximately 1 degree Celsius in that period of time. You can change the prediction time. They have all the way up to 2050, 2060 and onwards. And that will also be helpful because, as you know, asphalt is black. Roads are made of asphalt. Asphalt is black. The road will heat up if the temperature goes up. If the air temperature is about 40 during a hot summer day, the road temperature might be around 65 to 70 plus. That means that all the buildings surrounding that road will be heated up indirectly by the road itself. So that might be something to consider when building new roads. At the same time, if you're managing rails, this is a very clever indication of all the different trains on the line. So different colors for different train lines. And you can actually see where they are in real time. So if you keep updating the page, you will see that the train is moving where they are. So in case something happens, an accident, a terror attack, you know how many passengers are where and what's the best way to take them out safely. There are so many things that you can do. Unfortunately for roads, you can grab information from the Digital Twins Victoria, but as you can see on the right-hand side, when you start looking for information, most of the data sets are empty. And that's because we do not really collect much information for our roads. I can't find anything here that tells me what the defects on the roads are, what's the condition of the road at this stage, if it requires maintenance, what the sensors are telling me. Maybe there are no sensors in that particular road. So Digital Twins is like a huge digital brain that can help you manage all of these different layers of different information. I think, and I'm about to close with this slide and the next, that there is scope to use Digital Twins to produce what I called an autonomous infrastructure management system. Basically, the entire transport network, the roads, the rails, the airports, that are self-managing themselves under an infrastructure point of view. Okay, so I'm not talking about traffic flows. I'm talking about infrastructure, the road, the rail track. In using different algorithms like artificial intelligence, machine learning, we can enhance the capability of digital twins. The road can actually start looking at the information in real time coming from the sensors and start alerting the crew, look, you need to go there at that particular time of the day because that will minimize the chances of you creating a congested road between these 2 points. Or if something happens to this road, I can let you know that if you close this road, this is going to affect this many people. If you're closing it in this particular time of the year, this is going to affect this many people. So they will need to be rerouted through these other roads, and this will create further congestion in these other areas. So all of these can be done automatically. And the big advantage is that the digital brain has a much, much stronger computational power compared to our single human brain. We might still need to verify the information there. We might still need to train the algorithms. But I think in the next 15, 20 years, with a lot of sensors becoming cheaper, smaller, and better, data safety being a good thing in terms of implementing blockchain technology and other similar technologies, this can be achieved. And if you are a bit skeptical, saying, oh, this is not going to happen, I just want to leave you with one consideration. 15 years ago, the first robot vacuum cleaner came up. And as you can see, there was a front black bumper. And the only thing that this could do is just to keep going, bumping into walls before there was an understanding from the machine that it needed to change direction. And then after changing direction, you needed to wait until it got into another wall before it could change direction again, and so on and so forth. So the pathway for vacuuming was all over the place and was really not effective at all. But 15 years later, we got the same vacuum cleaner machine that has a laser mounted onto it, a LiDAR system that can 3D scan the entire thing, create a digital model, and optimize the pathway to clean. Not only that, but it can also use artificial intelligence to figure out by itself which are the areas of the house that requires more mopping, for instance, or dust removals, and it keeps going there more often than in other areas. So all of these can be trained through machine learning and artificial intelligence. If you think about LiDAR, the LiDAR system, that laser system that gives you the 3D points clouds, this was probably invented more than 2 decades ago at least, and the initial one costed about $100,000. Now we can have one, and that was the size of a human being. Now we can have one the size of a coin, and the entire vacuum cleaning system is less than $1,000. So that's what I envision for our transport infrastructure network towards an autonomous transport infrastructure management system. And with that, I will now pass it on to our next 2 industry speakers for their case studies, and I will thank you for listening.
Thank you, Filippo, for your input. I'd now like to welcome our second speaker, Andrew Curthoys. Andrew has 35 years' experience across numerous senior executive roles, leading policy development, project delivery and policy implementation in the Queensland Government. Andrew is currently working at the Suburban Rail Loop Authority and is the chair of ABAB, an industry and government representative board across Australia and New Zealand. Andrew's government project management expertise includes the policy areas of asset management, strategic advice to Cabinet, corporate governance, infrastructure, planning, and organisational development. Please welcome Andrew Curthoys.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks for that warm introduction, and it's great to be here today with Engineers Australia. Hi, I'm Andrew Curthoys, Chair of the Australasian BIM Advisory Board. I'm delighted to be presenting today to Engineers Australia in the great company of Anna Kusk and Filippo Gustosi. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss the value of digital twins in critical transport infrastructure. Let me start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, sky and waters of the country that we are all joining from today, and pay my respects to all elders past and present. And to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are meeting with us today. I proudly recognise the strength and enduring connection of country as the world's longest living culture and the profound wisdom, resilience and contributions of First Peoples and their communities. A little bit about ABAB. The Australasian BIM Advisory Board was started by the APCC and ASIF in 2017. It has tremendous support from a range of industry groups including Building Smart, NatSpec, Austroads, and Standards Australia. ABAB leads industry and government collaboration to ensure an integrated and consistent approach. And ABAB is recognised as that whole of industry voice. But key to being a leading industry voice is the importance of driving consistency so that industry and government have a certainty around what I like to call the rules of racing, which leads to confidence to invest. ABAB commits to having an integrated best practice approach to building information modelling, driving consistency at all levels of government and industry through standards, protocols, systems, contracts, tools, and approaches. ABAB provides best practice and promotes the adoption of best practice through a range of initiatives and forums. And ABAB delivers a whole of industry voice, which is laying the foundations for the digital twins, including the important and city and regional shaping infrastructure that transport projects deliver. In order to drive consistency, certainty, and confidence, we've developed a curated list of ABAB-endorsed documents designed to identify best practice and drive harmonisation and consistency in the digital built environment. This work has delivered clear guidance to industry and government to deliver better outcomes and consistent approaches. And please scan the QR code to see the publications and more. I'll also include the QR code at the end of the presentation. BIM is about getting benefit through specification and delivery of just the right amount of information about the design, construction, operation and maintenance of buildings and infrastructure using appropriate technologies. The ISO 19650 series applies throughout the whole life cycle of an asset. And it's through these built environments, buildings, infrastructure, the systems and components within them, that we are able to apply to both vertical and linear infrastructure, which delivers benefits, not only during the design construction phases, but more importantly during the operations and maintenance phases of infrastructure. Now, we need this information to ensure that the infrastructure being delivered and operated can be done so as effectively and efficiently as possible for future generations. If we get it right, future generations will thank us for the work we do now to improve the ongoing operational effectiveness of new assets. This approach will clearly help deliver savings and efficiencies. The key difference between a BIM model and a digital twin is, of course, the latter, right? Its connection to the physical twin, right? And this is something that I want all of you to take away today. Whereas BIM models typically need to be updated manually, what sets a digital twin apart is the model being updated by data gathered directly from its physical twin, from its actual twin. This can be enabled by sensors, communications, Internet of Things, radio links, all those sorts of things. But what we're trying to do is get the concept can be extended to bi-directional exchanges of information, where automated systems, including those applying to artificial intelligence, AI, are used to control the operation of the asset. This connection makes digital twins attractive to infrastructure agencies and urban administration bodies because of their potential for effectively managing complex dynamic systems that have a significant impact on many people's lives. Now, as we know, change is happening. The planet is warming, corals are bleaching, working from home is more commonplace, the population is aging, cities are demanding more energy. The impact of the pandemic and changes to regular seasonal infections such as the flu and the common cold are continuing. But there are opportunities occurring too. Energy transformations are underway. Digital twins are being used in the creation and operation of transport infrastructure. Carbon accounting is needed as governments grapple with climate change and identifying what offsetting measures we can put in place. So, measuring outcomes, improving asset management, and improving the overall life cycle of assets is key. But to do this, we have to make the right choices. We need to be making better decisions. And to do this, we need data, better information management, and a digital system of systems, if you like. In my view, by giving people the right data at the right time and the right information, we can make the right decisions for the outcomes that we want. But this will not happen by accident. We must be purposeful and intentional. It feels like an enormous task, particularly when we read the news and we see the effects of things like the climate crisis, the pandemic we've all experienced, and of the many other challenging issues of our time. But we already have many tools that we need, and if we work together, we can make a vision of a built environment that enables people and the planet to be improving all the time and for generations to come. So I want to draw on the work of the Centre for Digital Built Britain, and I acknowledge its incredible contribution that it has made. It was established to drive and deliver better outcomes for how we measure, manage and utilise data to improve the delivery of major infrastructure and the integration of data assets across a range of different data sets to create holistic approaches using digital twins to improve service delivery. Historically, we've talked about the physical, social, and the natural environments, but not about the systems that enable these physical assets. So, how do we utilise the data that is generated in each asset class to improve service delivery? We now need to operate and maintain those assets and capture the data more effectively to make better decisions. Simply, the digital twin can help squeeze that data lemon harder to get better outcomes from the physical assets, particularly for major transport infrastructure. There's a couple of examples I'll take you through shortly. But of course, it is the natural and built systems working together that will continue to deliver the services that we need to help people move around cities, regions, and towns. And transport infrastructure, which is digitally enabled, is going to be key to that experience. As you can see, the Sustainable Development Goals can be used to promote better outcomes at each level of government, but also for all communities, including carbon accounting. And what this means is there'll be exchange of data up and down, backwards and forwards to improve service delivery and to get better outcomes. So just like the physical built environment has a cyber version and a cyber physical system, there are now enormous amounts of data that are being utilised to intervene and improve performance of assets. If you like, it's those interventions which are informed by data which then create better outcomes. And the system of system approach that the Centre for Digital Built Britain established has espoused how that we can bring these together. But of course, one of the things that we really need to do is get it right. Simply, in order to get it right for digital twins, we need the right amount of data at the right time and in the right hands. But also, it then needs to be used to improve asset delivery, be captured and then move to asset operations, and look to how we can improve asset maintenance using that data. So you will see through your experience in the workplace that some organisations and some businesses have a very siloed effect with data, and they don't utilise it as effectively as they could. But what I'm going to show you next is something that I think is key to getting it right. Now, data itself has a value. It is an asset class in and of itself. An example is the UK Highways England, or UK Highways England, which is their National Highways program over there, and their cyber portfolio, their data, if you like. It's worth 50% of their physical asset. So a third of the total value of their asset classes. It is really an investment class in its own right, and infrastructure agencies need to consider that and how they transfer that data, the correct data, with the asset to the operations owner. So for example, major transport infrastructure such as Suburban Rail Loop in Melbourne, Cross River Rail in Brisbane, the Melbourne Metro, Parramatta Light Rail, Sydney Metro, are all delivering digital twins which will be used in the operations and maintenance phases of their life cycles of those assets. The International Olympic Committee has also committed to utilisation of digital twins for the major infrastructure associated with the Olympics in Brisbane 2032. But what do we need to do? We need to ensure that that data is open and interoperable for optimum benefit. Data is only useful when it becomes information to make better decisions. It becomes more valuable when it is shared, and the whole is far greater than the sum of the parts. So, for example, you can see in that very clear data pyramid that you've got clear information around decisions, clear information around how we make sense of these things with ESG frameworks, and clear examples of data sources. But what we need to be doing is, looking at that holistically and ensuring that we get the best outcomes for the assets that we are trying to manage to improve that data performance, so that infrastructure performance over time. So simply, digital twins. Digital twins of new individual assets can have their data managed very effectively and are better able to be optimally managed. I mean, it's quite simple. A new asset with a digital twin, circular information. The data, the interventions, the outcomes, the decisions is all quite clear. The physical twin, through the data generated, delivers insights, and then those decisions can be taken and interventions made from data improving the operation of the physical asset. When we start introducing things like machine learning and AI, that turbocharges the ability to look at the performance of the asset. In your careers, you will see AI and machine learning become commonplace and take over a lot of the mundane work. So there won't be the analysis so much that has gone on previously. There'll be much more improved outcomes by giving machine learning and AI the opportunity to trawl through that data, which will be generated by those assets. But another major challenge in all of this is the integration with existing systems and legacy data. Businesses must ensure the digital twin system is compatible with their existing infrastructure, the data, the workforce, and can exchange that data seamlessly. Now, this may require additional development of the work, right, such as building APIs or modifying existing software and hardware systems, and focusing really closely on the transition of data governance models and workforce adoption. But more than likely, it's going to be middle-aged men like me who say, don't worry about that, this is the way we do things here, and fail to embrace the way that data is being generated to improve asset outcomes and asset delivery. It's up to the young engineers and the graduates to challenge that approach. In my view, it's really important that cultural change is embraced to ensure that the organisation can see the benefits of the digital twin to improve the operations of an asset and obviously improve the maintenance of that asset, and in turn improve service delivery for all of us. So once you then look at the assets around individual elements, train, a bus, a tram, you can then start integrating it with the network that it operates on. So, of course, when we start bringing new assets into existing assets, and those legacy assets, create keys and challenges, it's how we integrate that. As I mentioned, though, I really think this is where machine learning and AI will come in to help the business, the operations managers, the asset maintainers. But those roles need to be open to hearing about the new approaches that are going to be available and embracing change. So as you can see, even on a rail network, we've got the trains, we've got the running tracks, we've got the signalling. 3 different systems potentially that we're trying to integrate. But we can do better, and we must do better to improve it for society and also for all of us as taxpayers. So then when we start introducing an ecosystem of systems, right, we end up with the rail network integrating with the airline network, integrating with a bus network. And so we're really starting to bring a whole ecosystem of connected digital twins together. And this is when the challenges occur, because we've got different systems that start to rub up against each other. And we know in the physical world that happens anyway, right? There'll be a timetable breakdown, there'll be a delay, there'll be fog that'll stop planes landing. there might be a whole range of issues that operate. How do we overcome that? We need to ensure that we are using the digital twin environment to make sure that we can get over those challenges, over those setbacks. And it will also improve the overall operation of the ecosystem of digital twins and digital assets, not to mention the physical assets. What we need to do is make sure that we are thinking about those and being one step ahead of what some of the challenges are going to be. Digital twins will help us do that, but human intervention is going to be needed to assist that. AI and machine learning will be part of the contribution to a digital twin and asset improvements, but really, human ingenuity will deliver solutions and outcomes all the time. So it's how we free up our time to focus on that ingenuity, and digital twins, in my view, will also deliver that. So that ecosystem of connected digital twins is key, right? You can see it here when we've got transport connecting with energy, connecting with water, right? That really changes it and becomes more and more complex. But that's where we've got to get to. So we have that integration, we can have those opportunities. But remember, it's all built on building information models of those individual assets, and then those individual building information models working together. So what are we looking for in society? We're looking for certainty, to provide confidence, to ensure that we can get good investment decisions, right, for the future. Now, we've got those elements there that I've identified, but when you start bringing it into a city, right, you end up with a complex level of connected digital twins, right? You can see information on the ground. You can then start to see it above. You can see those physical connections or those data connections that are occurring all the time. It ultimately leads to a city or region-wide digital twin, which is sharing data and improving outcomes for the benefit of the operations of the assets, and improving service delivery of those for the users of those assets, which is us. In time, the assets will be able to share data and work effectively together with less human intervention. And as I've said, AI and machine learning will increase in the workplace, and they'll assist those asset operators and maintainers to improve functioning, to optimize operations, and thus, as I keep saying, squeezing those data lemons harder. So it's continuing all the time, and it's something that will be in the workplace, and it's already there, but it will become even greater over your careers. So digital twins will be able to use continuously to improve outcomes. AI will be used to enhance data collection, improve predictive analytics, empower autonomous decision-making, and advances in modelling and simulation, and really promising transformative applications across a whole range of sectors. But why are we doing all this? We're doing it to improve service delivery for users and to help contain the operations costs. Digital twins are here now. They're progressively improving transport infrastructure, but they will need human oversight, as I've mentioned, to ensure the best outcomes for the operations and maintenance of the assets. So I encourage everyone to utilise the digital twins that you'll come across in your workplace. Engage, examine, improve, and refine. Thank you. And if you want to scan any of our documents, please have a look at abab.net.au. As I said at the outset, ABAB is an industry leader, and it works with governments, and it will continue to support the delivery of elements such as digital twins. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for your presentation. I'd now like to welcome our final speaker, Anna Kusk. Specialising in optimising asset management across mining, defence, manufacturing, construction and utilities, Anna leverages data to enhance maintenance, risk and investment decisions. As a specialist in engineering asset technology and data frameworks, Anna streamlines operations by integrating and visualising complex data sets. Her expertise spans 15.0, data architecture, AI integration, IoT systems, SCADA production systems, and OT IT conversions, supported by accolades including fellowships of Australian Computer Society and International Society Engineering Asset Management. Anna co-chairs the Asset Institute's Virtual Twin Committee for Australia and contributes to academia and publishes regularly as an adjunct at the Industrial AI Research Centre at the University of South Australia. Please welcome Anna Kusk.
Thank you for the introduction, Amanda. Today, we live in an incredibly, however, complex world where people, assets, and technology are constantly connected. We use engineering and technology enhancements to optimize the use of our finite time in a safe and a predictable way. A great example of this is how we plan for our families to get to work and to school this morning. If you think about the weather conditions, they could be icy and it's raining, and we need to make decisions about how we get everybody to where they need to go. In terms of actually being able to do that, we might actually grab the mobile phone, we might look at the BOM site, we'll look at Google Maps, we might look at the bus, train and ferry timetables to see what the railroad and seaports have in terms of any cancellations due to the weather conditions. We make decisions about dropping the kids off at the bus or whether we'll just take them directly actually to school, and if that's the quickest and safest actual route. So we decide to jump in the car. The satellite navigation systems provides real-time visualizations of traffic issues, changing the rate at which we can see which is the quickest route and the safest route in terms of getting everybody to the destinations that they need to go to. In all likelihood, we have all engaged with several digital twins today just to get to work. Many millions of data points have been aggregated and visualized seamlessly, showing how well or not our transport infrastructure investments are integrated, safe, and optimized. Today, I will show some real-time, real-world client examples of digital twins enabling and optimizing our daily decisions of how we interact with and invest in critical transport infrastructure. Our first video is in relation to the Northern Territory, Darwin Harbour. This video shows us the preparations for expanding the Darwin Harbour. The port, even though it is in a smallish metropolitan city for Australia, that it has a lot of complex interactions in relation to maintenance, rail, cruise ships, defence, fishing, environmental considerations, roads, tankers, and it has a lot of control centre activities as well. All of these are occurring simultaneously most of the day and night on any given day in the Northern Territory. The purpose of the virtual twin is to enable all of those different stakeholders to see visually the planning aspects. It shows the constituents what's planned in terms of the actual expansions. It helps us actually design, configure, and in context see what some of the changes and impacts might actually be. This is actually a virtual twin as opposed to a digital twin. This is because the data is not in real time. To enable the building of such a virtual twin, it can be around 6 weeks for this particular project that we have here on the screen. There are a few variables that I'll point out a little later in relation to these. In terms of actually completing the digital twin, there's about 15 different or over 15 different software applications that are used. There are server considerations, whether it's sitting on a cloud or it's actually hosted within your organizations. There's 3 external sources with many data points that we need to actually get data from. There's over 60 objects, and some of those we need to actually license. And there's hundreds of data points and 15 skills just in terms of the technology staffing requirements that we need to add other skill sets to as well. Now we'll turn to our second digital twin. This is actually a digital twin. It's based upon and built upon the virtual twin components. So with our first lot of 6-week activities for each example or use case, such as this one here, we can then start to actually add some real-time data into there. This example shows that some of the weather conditions, which can be quite extreme in Darwin, there can be 8-metre tides, there are extreme rain patterns occurring, and there is quite often can be cyclonic conditions as well during some parts of the year. This all helps us to actually identify, particularly with different users of the port, whether that's defence, whether it's cruise ships, or whether it's fishing activity, or just the actual port management activities, that if there are external environmental factors and different ones, what the impact of those are going to be in terms of all of those users using the port, but also in terms of the engineering, design, construction, and the situating of those in the broader port area as well. Now we'll turn to our third virtual twin. This virtual twin here is based upon some of the underlying features that we showed in the first video. It's really actually a training video as its main purpose, as you'll see as we actually walk through. Some of the objects and icons like the buoys and the boat and other components that are sitting on the deck, some of those are actually licensed objects, and that there can be many, many, many of them that you need to account for if you're actually planning to design and deploy your own virtual twins. This virtual twin, again, no real-time data that's actually going to it. It's not updated very often. It's often used in conjunction with a VR headset as well, so that people can get a familiarization of particularly the safety aspects before they actually go out to visit the asset for the first time. This example here is another virtual twin, just showing as an example of how we actually capture and digitize some aspects where we've got documents or we've got visuals like we have here that we need to actually digitize and convert into different formats. One of the ways that we actually do this is through LiDAR data capture. And so what we have here is the HMAS Canberra Minesweep system, where we need to actually optimize and enable the different stakeholders to be able to move the assets as quickly as possible in and out of the asset and in and out of the ports area as well. And you'll see in the middle photo there that there is a person who's actually videoing the interior of that asset on the left-hand side. After we've actually captured the LiDAR images, it's what it looks like is on the right-hand side in the middle there. And then when we actually enable it as a virtual twin or a digital twin, in this case it's actually a virtual twin, there's no real-time data again actually going to it, that there's some pictures there of what it actually looks like when you actually walk through it on the actual screen. So a couple of different types of digital or virtual twins as examples there. So in terms of how we actually go about enabling a virtual twin and what are some of the success factors that we've found with our clients that we work with, mostly across mining, engineering and utilities and defence as well. Some of the things that we're finding is on the top half of the screen there's quite a few different applications, as I was mentioning before. There's, for the first video that I showed, there's more than 15 different applications that you need to actually account for. There's also a interaction between a couple of different types of organisations or entities as well. Obviously, you've got your own stakeholders and you need to start with your requirements and requirements gathering and some user stories. If we're in an engineering context, using engineering software, we will quite often put those requirements into the model-based systems engineering software so that we've got traceability from a systems or software engineering perspective so that we can actually trace of what we actually delivered was meeting what the requirements were that were actually specified up front. We've also got on the right-hand side quite a few different data sources, such as the Bureau of Met Weather, that we need to actually import into the models, and that we can have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of actual data points that we need to actually bring in to usually a cloud environment, but it can be on-premise, and actually marry up and transform and convert that actual data. That part of it in terms of finding the data and transforming it, performing the algorithmic methods on the data to be able to visualize it is what often takes a great deal of time in organizations. So if you're starting out on your journey, I would encourage you to actually put somebody in, have that responsibility to be able to go out and actually find those data sources that you think you might like to visualize as a virtual or a digital twin, and that they start working on that. Get a catalogue of the data that's required, the systems, how difficult it is to actually find those systems and that data, and also in terms of start finding the data, bringing it into your environment, getting the skilled technologists to be able to integrate that data together and start using the tools that your organisation has available to it at the moment. Most organisations will have the tools available, particularly in terms of the data integrations and quality and things like that. They're quite often as part of your cloud environments. In terms of the actual visualizations and undertaking the calculations from an engineering discipline, engineering disciplinary perspective, from a mechanical, electrical, civil, etc. Lenses, that is quite often specialised modelling type software that you need to actually account for as well. In terms of the cost and the time frame, The first example, as I was saying, that was about 6 weeks that we actually did with Northern Territory, and that we build on that from a virtual twin to a digital twin. And that some of the things that can affect the time, the cost, and the quality of your end output is definitely getting on to finding the data and converting and transforming that data first, and starting that early. Some of the other things is whether it is going to be real time or whether it's going to be static, and therefore how often you need to actually have the data actually integrated. We also do find that if it is and can be an engineering and technology joint project, that if the engineering teams are actually driving that, and particularly from an agile perspective, which is where we've got the tasks there that we used for the Northern Territory example in the middle of the slide there, that if you're using those agile project methodology approaches, and that you're running daily sprints every day, that you can actually enable your outcomes probably a little bit quicker. And that if it's an engineering lens jointly with technology team, that we can also progress quite a lot as well. You do need an engineering lens for these types of things, particularly for critical infrastructure projects, and also a technologist lens, also change management, and you will also need some business input from the business teams as well. Some of the other things that we're finding more recently too is that the frameworks that can actually guide you from a strategy perspective. We've got REMU 4.0, that's the reference architecture for manufacturing from an Industry 4.0 lens. So Industry 4.0, the virtual and digital twins can enable the industrialized lenses around your manufacturing approaches and engineering approaches. In the middle, we've got the AMCOG Asset Institute Strategic Integrated Asset Management Framework that covers off all of the different aspects from security, environment, are you meeting your strategic goals, people, process, and technology areas. On the right-hand side, critical infrastructure assets, cybersecurity incidents, and changes to the SOCI Act have meant that a lot of engineering asset infrastructure-based organisations are needing to comply with the SOCI Act in ways that they didn't necessarily have to before, and therefore their data and how you represent the data and how you're using and integrating data, particularly from an infrastructure perspective, whether it's transport or other areas, that is actually something that's come to the fore as well. So in wrapping up, hopefully this has given you a little bit of an understanding of what some of the aspects are that you need to plan for to be able to enable your digital twins in the quickest and way and means that you actually can, so that everybody has a safer working environment, and that we're utilising the technology and the environment and the engineering enhancements that we've actually made over time. Back to you, Amanda. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for a great presentation and your input today. I'd now like to welcome back Filippo Gastuzzi for closing.
Thanks, Amanda, and thanks to our two fantastic speakers. I will now close this session by introducing one of our initiatives at RMIT, which is the Industrial Transformation Training Center for Digital Twins in Critical Transport Infrastructure project. As you have understood by now, there is a need to train people and train the workforce in order for them to implement digital twins and digital tools in the future infrastructure projects, because we do have a lot of projects. If you remember one of my first slides, that are still pending. So we have a huge opportunity to implement these digital technologies. Unfortunately, many universities, including my university, if you are getting a civil engineering degree at this stage, which is the one that will allow you to design roads, railways, and airports, we do probably have 1 or 2 subjects out of maybe 30 that are related to this particular topic. So there is a need for training, and that's why we put together this initiative, which is an industrial nationwide training center. The ITTC aims to revolutionize the transport infrastructure projects, the way they are conceptualized, the way they are designed, the way they are built throughout the entire life cycle by using digital twin technology. Now, the way it works is that RMIT, together with other universities, as well as a team of industry partners and industry associations, plus several levels of governments, whether it's local government, state government, we will submit a proposal to the federal government through a body that is called Australian Research Council for this initiative. And this initiative has as a main aim to shape the future workforce with specific knowledge in digital twins for transport infrastructure project. Basically, there would be PhD students, there would be researchers working for up to 4 or 5 years in this particular topics. The industry would be the main part of these entire projects, because depending on the industry partners, we decide together with them what the particular topic of interest to them is. The particular trainee, whether it's a PhD candidate or a researcher, will spend time with the industry partner so that will facilitate his or her ingress into the workforce. So the idea is to create a center around these 6 major topics. Obviously, these are quite flexible at this stage. I will talk about the timeline for submitting the proposal later, but at this stage, we have identified these 6 as the most interesting to our industry partners. And by the way, we're still looking to get more industry partners before submission of the proposal. I will talk to you in the next slide about that. Between as a predictive analysis tool, what happens to when I'm doing a planning phase, or if I need to react in real time to economic stressors, social stressors, environmental stressors, how will my infrastructure react to that? Or digital twins to enhance safety, that's mostly during construction and usage phase of the infrastructure, but for workers and users, improve resiliency by using digital twins. We have a lot of floodings, we have accidents on the networks, we might need to use some disaster response technique to minimize the impact on users, terror attacks, so on and so forth. The use of artificial intelligence and machine learning to make sure, if you remember my presentation about the vehicle with the small sensor to exchange information with the infrastructure, so how the infrastructure can self-train itself by collecting all these millions of data sets from the different vehicles on the network, or even underground mapping of the utility services, actually creating a digital map of what is invisible. Construction and management of transport infrastructure using digital twins. We have a lot of different techniques that we can use: intelligence compaction, different sensors, material optimization flows, so on and so forth. And all of those towards what I define as autonomous infrastructure management system. So the contribution by the industry partners and the return of investment is as follows. Basically, every dollar that is invested by the industry partner, the Australian government through the ARC, Australian Research Council, will give $2 back. This means that for every industry dollar, we get a total project value of $3 in cash. The IP rights for partners are negotiable. Obviously, for any investment, there is a strong focus on supporting commercial impacts for partners. The project activities and goals will be oriented towards partner interest. As I said, it's going to be the partners, the industry partner, deciding what particular topic we might need to look for or to investigate. And this will be designed before the submission to the government. The training center supports an embedded PhD lab model. So the industry partner will actually be able to do R&D using the partner universities. And as I said, it's not just RMIT. RMIT will be leading this proposal, but there will be a few other key universities around Australia, not just in Victoria, that will be part of this. Actually, the industry partner might have the opportunity to have the trainees spending time at their facilities for up to 20% of their time. If the industry partner doesn't want to do that, we will train them as well, but it is encouraged that this will happen to facilitate the ingress of that trainee into the new workforce. And lastly, the timeline for this submission, we have an expression of interest from industry partners with potential topics of interest that has already started. We do have a couple of industry companies that have already started thinking and working with us on this, and we have time until mid-August. What is required by the partner is just a support letter saying I will support this particular project, this is what I would like to do, this is my cash contribution, and this will need to come in between mid-August and mid-September. Then there will be a few months of writing the proposal, the budget. These are big proposals and big projects. We're talking about 10 to 12 millions of dollars overall in terms of projects. There will be several candidates being trained by this project, both directly and indirectly. And then the final submission is due in November 2024. So if you are interested in participating to this proposal to the Commonwealth Government, please get in touch with me. This is my email address and phone number. Feel free to call me up or drop me a line at any time. Thank you again for listening.
Hi, it's now your turn to get involved. Please ask our speakers questions via the chat box and who your question is directed to. And thank you to everyone who put forward a question whilst registering. Anna, I might start with a question for you from Paradon, who's watching from Victoria, asking you, Anna, how do you ensure the digital twin data is current and up to date?
Thank you for your question, Paradon. It does really depend upon where the data is actually coming from and whether it is in real time or you actually update the data manually and in a static format. So if you think in terms of traditional software testing, that you get a baseline and then you can continually actually test in relation to the software deployment, that when we have non-real-time data, that you can deploy that sort of a strategy. And you also would probably have a systems administrator, just like we do for every other sort of application that you have in your organization. If the data is actually coming directly off the assets, say from a programmable logic controller or an IoT sensor, then we do also get baselines of the data and what the tolerance levels is for that data when we actually implement the data integrations, and that particularly for SCADA control systems, traditional programmable logical controller type environments, that there is particular frameworks that and very well managed processes that we've been doing for a long time in terms of identifying that the data is or isn't out of tolerance levels. So that's probably the easiest ways, trying to actually control the input data at the source and continually going back and managing and checking on that with those different processes.
Thank you for that, Anna. Filippo, we've had a question that is continuing in that theme, and the question's coming from David from watching in New South Wales, asking you, how do you balance the need for accurate and up-to-date data at the expense of accurate and up-to-date data collection?
Thanks, Amanda. And that's a very good question, because people commonly get scared about all these many data sets. There are too many. How will I be able to manage? And if I don't have that many data sets, then maybe my model is not accurate. I cannot use to predict things correctly. More data required means basically more data sources to provide data. I think we need to distinguish between the different phases of the life cycle of a transport infrastructure. So Anna presented greatly about the fact that you can actually build a digital twin in 6 weeks, and that was for the Darwin port. So at the planning phase, at the construction phase, in the initial phase, design and planning mostly, it's not that data intensive. It's not that complicated to set up the right model. I think most of the challenges will come when you are managing the data. So, for instance, a road operator that will need to manage 800 kilometers of network for 20 years, then collecting accurate data throughout the entire sections of that network is going to be challenging. So my idea is it's similar to Amazon model, for instance. If you think about Amazon, you can get something down to your place in like a day or two, right? But they're not just hiring a million different mailmen all around the world. They're telling everybody, hey, do you have a car? Do you want to deliver this package for me tomorrow? If you spend 2 hours, you will get some money back. And I think a similar model can be used whereby we actually use vehicles from common users equipped with sensors, small, tiny, inexpensive sensors, and then the infrastructure will collect these data sets directly from the users, because at that point you will have millions and millions of data sets for free. Vehicles to infrastructure communications, I think it's going to be a big thing to look for in the near future.
Thank you for that. Anna, a question's come in from Nicola, who's watching from Victoria, asking you, could digital twins be utilised for the design of electrical network assets? And if yes, in which domain? Thanks, Anna.
Sure, that's something that we've been doing for quite a long time. So when we think about, as we were describing through these 3 presentations, that there's a difference between a virtual twin and a digital twin. And so with model-based systems engineering software, it's part of different disciplines in engineering where we gather the requirements and that we actually model the actual system of systems. And from there, then you can actually go on to develop a real twin and leverage that information. And so there's an entire discipline around model-based systems engineering. There's specific software that your organizations probably already use. Some examples in terms of IBM DOORS, there's CATIA NoMagic, and Revit in terms of construction industry as well. And that gives us a very good capture and baseline to actually work from. You can also go back and actually retest your baselines. And so we get traceability from the client's requirements right through to when we actually deploy an asset or enable an asset or construct an asset to be able to show right through that entire life cycle for engineering asset management and building, for example, that we have actually delivered what the client actually required. And then you can go back and use those actual model-based systems engineering frameworks and software and practices to then also make sure that the asset is still continuing to perform as it was designed.
Thank you, Anna. And Filippo, we've had a question that's coming from Anna. And Anna is asking you, which companies in Australia would value engineers and project managers with knowledge and certifications in digital engineering? Does this make the job easier and move the salary bracket? Thank you, Anna, for that question.
Thanks, Anna, for the question. I'm not really sure about the salary brackets, but what I can say is that there is a strong need from companies asking every single day to us, can you train people with digital skills, and especially for transport infrastructure. So talking about companies who can benefit from this, I think if you look at the entire life cycle of the infrastructure, you can start from the client, for instance, Department of Transport and Planning in Victoria, the state government for what relates to transport. They do have a digital engineering team embedded into them. You've seen in my presentation, some of the slides were related to Digital Twins Victoria platform, for instance. Moving on, if you're thinking about planning and the design phase, all the engineering consultancy firms like AECOM, BECA, GHD, WSP, and I mentioned one of their projects in my presentation slides. They are all very interested in developing these skills further and getting in engineers who do have these particular qualities. If you move on to the use phase, to the maintenance phase, then all the road operators or railway operators, for instance, Transurban, Ventia, all these big companies that have long contracts with the clients, they have an interest in making sure that the way they're managing the infrastructure is actually the most cost effective and also the best one in terms of performance to the users. So across the whole spectrum of the transport infrastructure lifecycle, you will always find companies that will have a very strong interest in hiring you, Anna, if you will get digital skills in the future.
Thank you for that. That's good news. Andrew, bringing you into the conversation. Questions coming from Julian, watching from Victoria. Andrew, what are good introductory references to read for the general understanding of applicability of digital twins? Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Julian, for the question. Look, I think there's a whole range of good publications that are out there. One group that I think is doing some really interesting work is a group called Tempo Institute. They've got a whole range of podcasts, publications. They have a digital twin program that they offer. They've got micro-credentials. I think it'd be worthwhile having a look at that. That's Australian-based, so that's of value, obviously. There are a number of international groups as well, Smart Cities Council, and others that are looking at more region-wide or greater digital twins. But I think if you have a look at some really good sources on LinkedIn as well, you'll find that there are a number of publications that are getting updated regularly as the thinking around digital twins continues to evolve. So good luck with that, and have a look at tempoinstitute.co.
Thank you for that, Andrew. Anna, we've had a question coming from Terry, who is watching from Canberra, asking you, Anna, is it more difficult to create a digital twin on existing systems, needing to capture, clean and validate data that has been poorly captured, or more difficult to create a new system with an accompanying digital twin, no data, cost of establishing, etc.?
Great question. Thank you very much. I think that the data, in terms of being able to source it, how easy it is in terms of it being in a digital format to start with, and also how easy it is to actually integrate it, to do some calculations, to then present it to a visualization screen, that in both of those scenarios, that's really the key points. And it's actually getting the best primary source data that is of quality, and being able to integrate it using the technologies that you have available to you in the shortest possible time to reduce the development period, to be able to get the data flowing from the primary source and updated regularly to the dashboards in both of those scenarios would probably be the first point. Regardless of whether it's actually existing data or brand new system, that it's still getting the data and from A to B and where it needs to go, and taking into account some of those things.
Thank you for that, Anna. Probably this may have to be our final question, but this is coming from Paneet in Victoria to Filippo, asking, what challenges do you see in implementing the digital twin strategy across the supply chain for the project? Thanks.
Thanks, Amanda. Well, there are a few obvious challenges, which are mostly technical challenges. We have been talking about this during the entire webinar. So anything that goes through data availability, data quality, data accuracy, data security, all of that relates to data is a big challenge, obviously. More into the use and maintenance phase rather than at the very, very beginning. But I think one of the biggest challenges to me is the training of the workforce. The fact that not many people out there still understand the difference between BEAM and digital twins. A lot of people still think that digital twin is basically a big, super huge, big software package, which is kind of true because all the digital twins are managed through a big software package, but the information that you need, it's also related to physical assets before you can create the digital assets. So I think the real key is training of the workforce, and that's really why we think that our proposal would be a strong proposal to be put to the government for approval.
Thank you for that, and thank you. We have had a lot of questions, and I'm really sorry that we have run out of time. I'm sure we'll be doing lots of thought leaders webinars in the future on this topic, so please stay tuned, and please join me in thanking our speakers for their time. Great presentations. I'd also like to thank Engineers Australia's industry partner, RMIT University, for their long-standing and ongoing support. Just quickly, registrations for the Engineers Australia Climate Smart Conference are up and running. So if you could please follow the QR code on your screen. As always, we're looking at ways to improve and plan for future sessions. So if you could take a couple of minutes to complete the short feedback form, which is linked in the description box below. Thank you again for joining us this afternoon, and I look forward to seeing you at our next Thought Leaders event. Thank you and good afternoon.